Bam! Welcome to the Alfalfa podcast. We are four radically moderate entrepreneur and investor friends. You guys like that I throw in the friends part?
I love how you say friends.
Yeah.
And
like
look
that?
at
Like
me.
as if it's questionable.
Today,
No, never. I love you guys. We're never questioning that. Four radically moderate. I lost my train of thought. Entrepreneur investor
got it.
friends.
They got it.
Seeking the alfalfa in money and life. And today in this life episode, we're going to be talking a little popcorn. We're going to be doing 3 different topics. So we're going to do our alfalfa round as usual. But we're going to start with Steven telling us about what's going on with Harry Potter Land and J.K. Rowling. There's apparently something that is worth looking at. We're then going to be digging into U-turn, somber note, the recent shooting in Nashville, and see if we have any updated thoughts around our position on guns, our position on why children are dying in America when they go to school. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about this recent petition that was signed by Woz, Elon Musk, Max Tegmark, and many others around sort of limiting the speed of innovation in the large language models that are really at the foundation of artificial intelligence. So, sounds like a lot of a range of emotions in this one. This should be interesting. Let's kick off with some alfalfa. Who's got some?
Pet insurance. Buy pet insurance. This might even be money out. I don't know.
I'm a proud pet insurance.
Okay,
enjoyer.
can you
me
tell
too.
me about it? Because I am just getting fleeced over here.
Yeah, I have pet insurance.
Like, does it work? Like,
oh my God, this makes me feel like I should invest in pet insurance. Like I want to start a pet insurer.
I don't know, man. I could probably take that insurance company for a run for their
tell us
money.
what's
It's funny
going on?
because I'm
Are
like
you-
a former, professional gambler, and I'd be the first to tell you, like, oh, insurance is negative EV.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Obviously, the insurance company is not handing out free money, but I've been an enjoyer of pet insurance because
Well,
Ziggy just keeps eating shit and like almost dying constantly.
It depends on the breed of the animal, doesn't it? Like our friends that have French bulldogs
Oh
are
my
like
God.
Well, their premiums
our
must be
friends
a
that
lot
have
more.
French
I'm
bulldogs
guessing.
are like plus $20,000 positive EV.
More.
So
Yeah.
Did they not charge the bulldogs more? Those things are barely alive.
I know.
Can't even breathe.
They can't even breathe.
They can't
need
breathe.
human
They can't
intervention to
reproduce.
breed.
By the way, did you see they're the #1 dog breed in America now?
Oh yeah.
That's
their
what's happened to
cuteness
America.
is actually
French
what
bulldog is the #1 breed.
That's their downfall.
it's their natural selection. Like it's what keeps their genes moving on to the next gene
We should
pool.
shout out Bridget and
Oh,
her
yeah.
brand. Shout out to Frenchie Bulldog, good friend of ours, the wife of our friend Justin. Bridget Levine has a really, really cool company. Lady Gaga's French Bulldog actually uses that brand. Yeah. She's
I remember
got all
when that
kinds
thing
of
was
influencers.
Just a little
using her.
niche, little e-com site.
No, she grew it. She grew it, and so it's like a harness for the French Bulldog, but other sort of breeds can totally utilize it as well. But I think the inception of this, if I'm not mistaken, was that the French Bulldog has a very unique sort of body style. It's all chest, all head, all chest.
All
sort of
pecs.
like Armand.
Yeah,
They don't lift legs, the Frenchies. They,
No.
just,
No,
they
they
only
don't.
do.
I know.
They all skip leg day.
Yeah.
all bench press.
so it's
all
like
the
a
time.
very specific sort of harness and other accessories. But yeah, check out Frenchie Bulldog. And that was just because I realized our friend owns a cool company in that. That's all. But I mean, yeah, for me,
Do you have pet insurance
I
for Mushin?
have pet insurance from Healthy Paws, and I don't know. I haven't done the math, but I think I'm in. I think we're in the positive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I gotta
I think so.
imagine.
I'm in the positive.
Yeah, I
Not
think
by
so.
a lot.
You don't
but
hear
I'm
that
in the
often
positive.
on
I don't think
insurance,
by a
by the
lot.
way. Like,
I think I pay
I'm
like $50 a month.
$60K lifetime on my health insurance.
Right.
Yeah, that's different.
That's for later on,
My
though.
dogs. We're cashing in on that.
Yeah, I think I pay $50 a month, and I started it early. Got him when he was a puppy, so it was only like $30 a month at that time, and it's $50 now. And we spend a few thousand dollars a year on medical
yeah,
stuff and vet stuff, and some. He's 3 now. I think in the first year it was a lot in the high thousands, and then I think in the second year was less. But it's still, when the deductible is like $500, it worked out.
Yeah.
Like this year it might not, but we'll see.
That's the
So
life
you're
alfalfa.
gonna get like
I can't get it now. It's too late.
I'm intrigued. I'm so intrigued as an investor. Like this sounds
like it?
ripe.
I mean, your idol Warren Buffett, he's cash flowing hard.
Prolific
I mean, his core business is insurance.
Prolific insurance investor.
Yeah. Anyone else got anything?
I use Lemonade for mine, and
Yeah.
I like them. So shout out to Lemonade. They have a very pleasant, pleasant design. It's all sketched out and whimsical, and claims process is easy. Also, for the record, I really like French bulldogs. I'm just hating because I have an Australian Shepherd, and they're obviously the superior dog breed. So I'm
What do you like
biased.
about them?
What, the Australian Shepherds?
No, the French bulldogs.
French bulldogs. They're sort of really cute in their complete haplessness. They just are unable to do anything, and they just like drool all over themselves, and like, it's kind of endearing.
Do you feel like English bulldogs are just even more worthless, which makes them more appealing to me?
We just lost listeners.
In case you didn't hear Nick say that, he said we just lost listeners. I think the easiest way to offend people is to ever say anything bad about a dog. Like that is
Okay,
like
all dogs
most
are
people
awesome.
care
I
about
love
dogs
dogs.
more than they care about people,
I love
right?
dogs. I love dogs.
Most people care more
doing
about
a bit
dogs
over here.
than they do
Frenchies
about
are
people.
cool.
They're cool.
Love Frenchies. My girlfriend has a Frenchie. Responsible for me not
For what
sleeping
it's
most
worth,
nights of the week.
3 out
because
of the
that
4
thing
of us
just is
have
like,
a dog. You gonna get
all
a dog,
night.
or you a dog? You don't come off like a dog guy, Eric. You want a dog? You want a little guy, little girl?
I do like the idea of having the laziest dog on earth. What's the laziest dog on earth?
Yeah, the I would say the English bulldog.
English bulldogs are pretty lazy.
Yeah, that appeals to me.
Slobbertown
Well,
with rolls.
Yeah, if you could just like eliminate the slobber, but keep the laziness and the stoutness. I like the shortest legs, biggest body. Like I want a dog that could never really do anything in real life.
we have like the opposite dog wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want my dog to be like a track star.
Steven's dog doesn't stop doing things. It's the
That's a
opposite.
fact.
Oh, he loves doing things. Ziggy loves doing things, and I love him for that.
No, he's a great boy. Well, I can't pull up my notes, so I can't remember mine. You guys have anything before we move on?
Did you know that you can get Chat-GPT on your phone and replace Siri with it?
There is a workaround for this. Yeah,
It's a third-party app or what?
Have
Getting
you guys
thrown
done
around.
this yet?
I
Yeah,
have
you
not
can make
done
like
it.
a custom
Heard
shortcut
it's not very
for
good.
it.
Have you tried it?
I have tried it.
Yeah, I heard it does not like
Want to see if it works?
recognize. Let's do it.
Hey, GPT,
Fail.
is it true that women like men with beards more than clean-shaven women? Oh, damn it. I said it wrong.
You just said a censorship.
As an AI language model, I cannot make generalizations or assumptions about preferences and behaviors of a particular gender.
Go to hell.
Some women may prefer clean-shaven men, while others may like men with beards. Okay, well, that was a very wishy-washy answer. But the point is, we got it. And actually, Siri will read this.
And can you talk back to it?
Um,
Or is it like a one question only?
I
Quick
think you
pop.
can talk back to it. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
But all of this is like the equivalent of like jailbreaking your phone to make something happen that is coming within the next few months.
I feel like this is
Like-
like I just got the cell phone that's like a brick and it's attached to my
Yeah.
car, and I'm like, hey guys, check out my cell phone.
Yeah.
Like I'm just
like wait, like let's like actually think about what it's like when you'll not only be able to ask that question, but it will respond with voice, and you'll be able to have a conversation in your ears with your AirPods, and you'll never even need to read the response because GPT is talking to you in the voice of your selection. Maybe it's James Bond. Maybe it's like some hot chick that
Maybe it's
you
Armand.
really want. Maybe it's yeah, maybe it is me. No commercial license available. But like, you can do that, and you will be able to do that very soon. 11 Labs, I think I mentioned this in the last or recent podcast, but they have some really good text-to-voice technology, and you can test it. You can upload, you can do the free trial, and you can upload your voice, and you can see what it looks like to generate your voice. But like that world, to me, the world where Steven's personal AI is possible, where everything is happening for them, and it's monitoring and tracking everything you do, everything you say, and you're able to ask it anything and you get an answer that's the equivalent of the quality of like GPT-4 via Siri, that experience via Siri, that is a world that is basically like the movie Her, which you and I, Nick, like really like and feel is what the future looks like, right?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, yeah, I think it'll be a dope world.
I look forward to that.
We're going to go back to what that world looks like later when we talk about the petition, because a lot of people don't think that that's a good world that we should be accelerating toward. So,
all right. Well, first I want to show this podcast I've been listening to.
okay.
It's called The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. It's a 7-part series, and it's really interesting on a lot of levels. The narrator, so the host, interviews J.K. Rowling, but also interviews like a whole bunch of people and it's sort of on. You guys remember during COVID when she tweeted the trans stuff, and then like the wrath of hell sort of came down upon her, and people were burning Harry Potter books in the streets. And
does anyone have those tweets available?
No,
I can't.
So like I've never seen this.
I can't remember.
I only heard about it.
Yeah, I mean the first one, she was expressing concern with the idea that like men were going to go in women's bathrooms, and the idea that like trans women were actually women. I remember the second tweet because she retweeted like an article that was like talking about like people who menstruate in the headline, and she was just like, people who menstruate. Gee, I feel like we used to have a word for that. What women wizard? Oh, I don't know. Like she was just, I don't know, sort of being cheeky about it,
trolling a little bit,
a little trolly. But that's the one that really just. So everybody kind of really lost their.
She got canceled for that?
She got very canceled. I mean, she got canceled by like a very specific
I don't want to get lost in
community.
that. But what is the argument against that?
Against what?
People who menstruate are women.
Wait, you're saying like why should we change language?
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm terrified of this stuff. I don't know.
I have her tweet, by the way, the other one.
Great.
Let's see
Let's
the tweet.
just look at the source code here and not bother.
All right, here's the other one that got some controversy. If sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. The idea that women like me who've been empathetic to trans people for decades, feeling kinship because they're vulnerable in the same way as women, i.e. to male violence, hate trans people because they think sex is real and has lived consequences is a nonsense.
So here she's saying sex meaning gender, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Because it makes sense to me when I replace the word sex with gender.
Sure.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like that to me reads like something that you could argue against or disagree with. It like hardly, to me anyway, seems like the type of thing you would like stone somebody over. But like that happened, right? And there was a lot of context around it, obviously. But the pod is interesting because it explores a lot. It explores the origin of Harry Potter because it also talks about the 90s, because Harry Potter was getting canceled in the 90s, if you guys remember, by like the fundamentalist like Christian right? Because it was promoting witchcraft for children and everything. And now it's kind of like it's come full circle because the right started embracing her after this because it was playing into their trans narrative, and it was like, oh, this is actually good now we like this, we like that you're doing this. So it's kind of interesting.
Really, in the 90s? Like I didn't know those books were that old.
Pre-cancel culture cancel.
Some of the clips they play from like it's like crazy to hear, and this was like 1998, right? Like it wasn't that long ago, and there was this moral panic throughout the country that like the children were going to be corrupted and led to Satan because they were going to be indoctrinated
the children
into
being
witchcraft.
corrupted is a tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time.
We've been saying that since fucking Socrates.
Yeah.
So
and like we're saying it now, right? Or I mean, not we, but like there's the same thing is happening in that movement today. Like we're corrupting the children. But it's not like, we're corrupting the children by they're reading books against witchcraft. Now it's like we're corrupting the children because there's like porn in the libraries and we're like putting them on this like medication when they're 6 so it feels like that's a more reasonable thing than the witchcraft thing. But I feel like and this is kind of the point of the pod, right? Because the host of the pod is a former member of, do you guys remember the Westboro Baptist Church? Like they were the ones who, held up signs in the streets like God hates, you know what, right? It was a very inflammatory thing from the 90s. And the host of the pod was one of those people holding up like the anti-gay signs. And like one of these sort of meta through lines in the background of the pod is like, I used to believe this thing that I thought was righteous and good that everybody else on the outside thought was crazy. And now I don't. What else do I believe that I believe so like self-assuredly that like I'm so confident that I'm right, but is actually wrong? And like, how do you approach a world of these difficult decisions from that perspective? And it spoke to me because I feel like that's what we do on the pod a lot. Like I think we have like opinions on stuff and we try to talk about stuff, and sometimes we're a little flippant about things, but like we try to always, like if nothing else, be like sort of questioning about, well, are we right? Is this really truth? Like where do the boundaries of this lie? And I think that was one of the most interesting aspects of the pod to me, is like how this person with this background was exploring this issue and sort of interviewing people on both sides of this issue, which I think is something we don't get. Like we just hear like far left and far right, and there's very little like commingling of those ideas and any ability to try to find any sort of like middle ground on this particular issue. And it just feels like ridiculous sometimes. So it was really a breath of fresh air for me, and highly recommend people listen to it.
So it sounds like she tries to get to truth, not necessarily like propagandize any, thought or motive. Does she arrive at a conclusion, or does it leave it kind of open-ended?
No, the point isn't to arrive at a conclusion. Like she sort of starts off interviewing Rowling and getting her take on stuff. But she then kind of flies back and she interviews like a lot of prominent trans activists and gets all their opinions, and then takes those opinions, goes back to J.K. Rowling, reads them back to her. How do you respond to this? So it was like really interesting to see those sides of it.
Did she ever express, Rowling, why she's talking about this? Is it just her being like, I'm a person, I want to have a say too? And
she said she like
or
could
does
not
she like deeply care
live
about this
with
for some
herself
reason?
if she didn't express what she believed to be these like truths. She's coming at it from what I've gathered from the point of view of like a feminist, right? And her thesis is essentially that the reason feminism exists in the first place is because there are innate biological differences between men and women. Like the most obvious being that like women bear and raise children in a way that men don't. And that women are just physically weaker. And a lot of the sort of structures that arose in society over our history that have like, kind of oppressed women, especially in the, not that everything's hunky-dory now, but things used to be really bad, for a few decades ago and beyond, right? Those all arose from those two things. Women give birth, women are weaker, right? A lot of stuff flowed through that, right? And she's like a very hardcore feminist at her core. And she was like, it doesn't make sense to say that these, biological men are women because they don't at their core have the very things that underlie the whole feminist movement to, begin with. Like she's like, well, trans, men who, are trans and like they end up transitioning to women, they can't give birth. And if they're like, Leah Thomas, they're quite fit and strong still and able to like win. Like, so she's like, in a way, like we're erasing women by saying these people are the same. And like the erasing of women from society or the pushing them to the fringes was kind of the root of this whole thing to begin with. So like, I totally get where she's coming from. And she tries to be supportive of trans people in the pod. Like, I totally respect your desire to live your life this way, and I support you. But it's not enough. It was like really, I don't know. It was very hard to like hear the words of these people on the other side coming at her, because it was like it reminded me of a discussion we had we did a Culture Wars episode like a while back. And I expressed like an opinion that like, I felt the trans movement was not, they were taking a different approach than like the gays did back in the 90s, right? Like, and even like MLK, there was Gandhi. There was there was an effort to make the people who hated you love you in a way, to sort of win them over and persuade them
with like a jubilant sort of,
Yeah, and this movement to me feels like more violent and fascistic and sort of like authoritarian in a way. And I know that like Natalie Wynn on the pod, she's a trans YouTuber, ContraPoints, like huge YouTuber. She says in the pod, like, this isn't authoritarianism, because authoritarianism implies that you have the ability to leverage authority. Yeah. Which like I get,
but having
the coming from with
ability
that,
to leverage community is similar.
Yeah, but like I feel like you guys probably agree. Like this particular movement, it does come across as very like, not we're going to persuade you, but like more we're going to like pound you into submission if you don't agree with like every single little thing that we say.
Why else would we be afraid to talk about it?
Yeah. Like I don't know. I don't really
want to talk about it. Let's just call it what it is. Let's just call it what it is. Why else would someone be afraid to talk about it?
Yeah, it's turned into this thing where it's just like, you have no upside, really. Like, you're J.K. Rowling, you're one of the richest women in the world, and you're living your life in fear because you speak. Nobody wants to do that. Why would anybody who has one like 20th of her power or wealth, even like if that's going to happen to her, like it totally makes sense. But I don't know. I don't think that's the most good.
To me, that's the most revealing thing about the entire movement. It's like this thing that, I have to shout out again to our community that has so much courage to discuss some of these topics in the Discord. And I've both watched and participated in this topic being discussed. And it is so beautiful to see people try to actually have a discussion around this topic that is so taboo today that you're not allowed to touch, because the only thing you're allowed to do is to accept the sort of commandments that are being given to you by the group. And the arguments for that are sound and good. The level of injustice that this group has to go through, the trauma of a person who is trans or who has transitioned or is considering transitioning is extreme. And there are many good arguments for why they just simply don't want to have the conversation. They're telling you and mandating you, this is what it's like to be me, and you lack compassion and empathy, and I am here to educate you, and everything that you say that goes against this is disrespectful. So listen and learn to listen. And so people have tried to listen, but every time they have a question, they're shut down. And that inability to ask a question and to have any sort of conversation has made this topic so taboo that I don't know if there is any other topic today that is as taboo as this. But people want to learn, and people want to grow, and people want to participate and respect. I know I do, speaking for myself. But what's happened is that the environment around the conversation has become so impossible to have a conversation around that I and we would rather not ask questions and not say anything because the risk is too high. And so if you are someone that cares about this movement, you want to create an environment that is more inviting for people to become educated. It's like being an immigrant from another country. And you show up to this new place that you've immigrated to, and you want people to care about your culture, and you want the government to like celebrate your New Year's celebration because it's from the country that you're from. And you're like, guys, like, please ask me, learn about this. But if you get it wrong, I'm going to fucking kill you. So like, don't say my name wrong. Don't say anything wrong about my culture. Don't make any mistakes about it. Don't ask the wrong question. Don't step outside the lines of the things you're allowed to ask about. Make sure you only say the things that I pre-approve you to say, and only then are you in the right. It's like, dude.
Would you say that
How
this
do we
is
have
a
the
page out of
conversation?
the Dictator's Playbook?
Well, that's a great series. And I think it is. And it's unfortunate because these are well-meaning people. You know, on Flow, I've tried to have this conversation on my podcast that I had before Alfalfa. Like, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to have these conversations. And people in our community are trying to have these conversations. People care. I just think, and you got shut down for saying that, right? Like, that was your whole point. It's like you wanted to have the conversation, and it was kind of shut down. Like, that's not the right approach to the argument, Stephen. But I don't know. I think like you meant well. I mean well. We want to learn. We want to have the conversation. And this is a topic that we would like to explore more. And people in our community have pushed us to explore it more. But the cost is extremely high. So it's even more unfortunate and ironic, but not at all related to anything that we've just talked about, that this shooting that just happened was by a trans person. So I want to make sure it's like, I know there's like a Tom Nom in our community was, you know, talking about this in the Discord as well, as like how tragic this is. What a great guy, by the way. Brilliant dude who brings so much value to the community.
Eats ass like a goddamn champion.
Oh, I needed that. And, you know, he's like, I'm going through a really hard time seeing this because, you know, I want to create an environment for this community to have a better conversation. And this community deserves to have a better conversation with the world at large, with the society that we live in at large. And then all of a sudden for this to happen is so tragic and so sad. Like, why did it have to be that way? So, you know, we're acknowledging, and I want to acknowledge this shooting, obviously, is what I'm starting to dig into. And I don't know if you guys have anything to say about like the guns aspect of it or whatever, but like, do you have any updated thoughts at all about gun control or anything, given again that like 9-year-old fucking children just died? Like 9 years old. And wasn't it 3 children and 3 adults? Like, what does it take to like try to resolve this anymore? I don't know. And just to throw one more thing in, like someone asked me and said, you know, you guys in the pod have talked about sort of this idea that the world is a beautiful place. And to say that the world is a scary place is not a good enough argument for not bringing a child into the world. And this person asked me, I think it was Cosmic in the community, said, Armand, you know, you just recently had a child, a baby. Like, has your opinion changed on this, given that you know that like the likelihood of your child being murdered going to school is higher than ever before? I don't know. Like, it's insane. Like, how is that even a thing that we have to even discuss? Like, you send your kid off to school and they might get murdered. And the best solution we've come up with is just tell the teachers and the faculty to fire back.
Or even worse, even worse is like arm them and like train them. That's the fucking stupidest thing.
Like,
it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So I've changed my stance a little bit. Like, so on our guns episode.
Wait, what was your quote? You had a great quote.
My quote?
I think it was, "You're retarded, Steven."
Oh, that's right.
I think maybe that was at dinner later.
Talking
That was
about
at
that
dinner.
one,
Yeah, that was at dinner. All right.
It might as well be my tagline. So
Canceled.
first of all, I should be canceled for that. I don't ever want to say that to you or anyone. But so on that episode, I argued for guns, and I still do actually. Like I actually do, because like you see, like you zoom out, right? You see like broader scale. You see like we've done episodes on what's happening in Iran, right? And this is a citizenship that does not have munitions, and they are at, like underneath the thumb of an oppressor. So like here you go, like that is what we are defending against. But I think there should be boundaries here, and that's where I land on this. It's like gun control. It's not gun removal. It's gun control is sort of like this most obvious thing ever. Where you draw those lines becomes hard, of course. I don't know where the fuck you draw those lines, but I think we should be able to come to some goddamn agreement, because this is getting so
It's just so bad.
heinous.
It's like
It's like if we can't come to an agreement, and the cost of not coming to an agreement is that
just
children
more
are
dead
dying,
children.
like then let's come to fucking agreement. Like let's find a line, please, for fuck's sake.
No,
it's so bad.
So bad. It's like our inability to solve like things that should just be like decent civil conversations. It's remarkable how bad things are. Like things like homelessness, things like gun control, things like I was recently exposed to recycling is like actually a huge problem. Like these things just need to be solved.
Oh.
Like that's the I
you
dipped
got a
my toe
recycling
into that
pill.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're already on the you took the
Oh,
pill?
I've been on that train for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save for another pod, boys.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's gonna be my alfalfa next week, I think. But it's insane. Like it's just impossible to like have a conversation around. Like, every time this thing happens, everyone goes to social media with their memes that get propagated by their ideology, and they just repost them. It's like the righties, and it sucks that it's like so much of a political divide. You know, it's like you will not encroach my Second Amendment rights is one take, and you idiots not realizing that we need gun control and that's the solution to this. And like not allowing yourself to have that conversation is the other side. So like, and no one's going anywhere. Nothing's going anywhere. I don't know what to do about it.
I haven't like changed my stance. I think like the easy solution, or like not easy solutions, but like low hanging fruit is still implementing background checks for things like gun expos or private sellers. Like that's a huge loophole in our system. I think slightly over 20% of gun sales go without background checks, and we know that, you know, there's a large contingent of people who acquire guns for criminal purposes. No, obviously not all of them, but still, like there should be background checks. And then the red flag laws, like it's not in every state. They should be integrated. They should be implemented. That seems to be like another low hanging fruit that should be implemented. I don't know where this person would have fallen. I haven't read their backstory, but
Yeah, you're not going to catch every single one, but if you can catch one, that's already an improvement.
yeah. And I think
So-
I still would prefer 21 or older, you know,
Yeah.
in order to buy a gun.
You have to be that old to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
I think that's always the funny.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird discrepancy.
It's very funny.
This is like one of those issues like we have to compromise on, because like neither side is going to win like all out, and I think we just have to accept that for what it is.
And we're all losing. Like we're all losing as we sit here and fucking bicker.
So do you guys worry about that? Like none of you have kids yet, do you? I don't know.
Dude, you were at my kids'
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Wait, really?
bar mitzvah.
Did I officiate a bar mitzvah without knowing it?
I'm not even
Oh
Jewish.
God,
I don't know what the fuck.
one passing comment has created a whole. It's created a meme at this point. Like, what do you guys think about that? Like, because the person that asked me, I don't have an answer. I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? Does it change your feeling at all?
Answer. It's just math, and the answer is like no. And like maybe I'm just like too left brain that like I remember we had
No, you're not fearful because the likelihood is so low.
Yeah, and it's just like math. I remember I had a conversation with one of our friends in COVID about like during COVID about like kids at school and COVID and everything, and I was like, that's just like not a thing. Like, why are you like? And there's all these other things, and he was just like, you will understand when you have kids, and like I don't think I will. Like, I just don't think my brain works that way, because like in this area, like it's just math, right? And if you start worrying that your kid has like a 2 in 100,000 chance of like dying, you know, via gun, then like, well, you're also gonna have to panic about the 58 other things that could like there are hazards in the world. And I think if you take a step back, right, you also realize that like we live still, objectively speaking, in like one of the safest times, maybe the safest time that's like ever existed for humanity. Like, sure, like America is a bit of a blip up on the chart a little bit, but it is a massive downtrend. Like years ago, there was just like a very high chance your kid didn't make it past the age of like 6 months, you know, and that was just accepted as like a normal part of society. And I think as a society, we've just sort of, we're not really good at the resilience and the coping thing anymore. We've strived to like remove all pain, everything bad, and like we can't even like cope with like the thought of like an infinitesimally small thing happening to us, and it like really drives us crazy. I just like wouldn't worry about that, and I think you can have that belief and still think like this is like tragic and shitty and we should fix it. But the idea that that would like prevent me from having a kid, it was like, never even entered my brain.
And like I get frustrated by the political conversation around this, because like we can't even agree upon what we're trying to solve. Because like if you were being intellectually honest and you said we're trying to decrease gun deaths, well, like what hardly gets attention is that more than half of gun deaths are from suicide.
Yes,
but no one says this is the biggest problem. If you know, I think if you exclude over half the gun deaths,
because that person chose, whereas the one that was the victim and a child did not. Like that seems to trigger people emotionally more.
Right. So that's a different question. That's a different problem we're solving. We're specifically solving, you know, deaths from mass shootings. But like, it just seems like they
we're unclear on the problem.
Like we can't focus in on, you know, what is the problem we're
Have you
trying to solve.
thought about this? Like how to even go about like asking the right question and solving the right problem, and what it would look like to actually like play out?
Yeah, I mean, you could ask like, are we trying to solve for less gun deaths? Are we trying to solve for less homicide? Are we only trying to solve for like less homicide in mass shootings?
Mass shootings,
yeah. Like in, you know, I think if you look at mass shootings, it's less than 2.5% of gun deaths if you exclude the major one, which is suicide. So it just happens to be the one that's like most emotionally charged.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand the perspective of people on the right on this issue, right? And from their perspective, like the left is not being intellectually honest, right? Because the stuff they recommend, like the idea that if you ban an AR-15, like that girl isn't just going to go into school with like a handgun, right? And also the fact that just the vast majority of like shootings are committed with handguns anyway, right? It makes people think like, okay,
what about
are your
mass
actual
shootings?
Yeah, same handguns.
They fire at the same
handguns.
rate as
it's like
assault rifles,
right? So somebody who's logical is just like, why would that solve the problem, right? Like,
but are they as commonly used in these mass shootings?
Yes, far more so. Orders of magnitude more. It's not even close, really, right? So anybody who thinks about this from like a sort of dispassionate analytical perspective, their conclusion is like, what are you hiding? Because if your goal was to reduce gun deaths, you wouldn't be banning the somewhat obscure. You would be banning the, and their conclusion, which I think is correct, is that like this is like a foot in the door to just ban everything. You start with the scariest thing, and ultimately you want to ban it. They should just argue. Like Beto O'Rourke, at least during the last campaign, like was at least honest, where he's just like, yeah, we're going to take all your guns. At least that's an intellectually honest position, right? And you can start from there and like argue for that.
I agree with this. The position and the approach as a whole is not honest.
And it's also like you're basically what you're saying to people on the right is like, trust the government.
Yeah.
Sure, you can take all the, but trust us, as though they haven't been like violated up and down and left and right by the government over the last few years, as though they haven't been lied to. Is that like, of course they don't want to give up their guns. They don't trust the institutions. They don't trust these people, right? But this is like the zooming out. The problem as a whole is like there's this like rot like throughout society, right? Like it's like a room we're living in where there's mold everywhere, and we keep just trying to like paint over the walls as though that's going to fix the mold problem. But the real problem is that we have like a moisture problem somewhere, and if we don't fix that, what we're just going to do, paint over walls perpetually and never solve the root problem. Like there is a much, much deeper problem at the core of why all this shit is happening in society. And it's not the fact that like Sally can get her hands on an AR-15. Now, like, we can argue about whether that should be so easy. I don't think it should. Like, I think a good compromise is to have like very strict like licensing and qualification laws for you to own a gun, and then also have like some sort of check and balance in the legal system so that the government can't just deny you of your constitutional right.
But why is that so hard to pass? Because I think like the four of us would probably agree with that stance.
I think it's because people aren't being intellectually honest. Like, because you don't hear that, like, you don't hear that from the left. You hear like, we need to ban assault weapons. And then like even the term assault weapon is just like, the fuck does that even mean? It's just, and then people are on the right are again, like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not being honest. I don't want to engage with you because you're hiding the ball. Like, we need to stop like hiding the ball and get to the.
I mean, there's no like in a discussion like this, there's no hiding the ball. It's like literally we're discussing the same thing.
Yeah, like, no, they are hiding the ball. They're saying like, we want to prevent kids from getting killed, but we want to prevent gun violence. So we're gonna take this gun away from you that doesn't actually and we're gonna ignore the gun that causes all of the violence. And then their conclusion, which is correct, is like, you're just trying to sneak in a ban of everything by doing that. And what they're and that's probably true. That probably literally is what they're doing. So of course they don't want to engage because there's not this like intellectually honest debate happening.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to focus, like when we're talking about school shootings, I think in most cases there are leading signs or some signs from people close to the the criminal, like that, hey, something's up. I think even in this case, there was like a text message in the morning saying, I'm planning to die today, to someone. So like, I don't know if those red flag laws are everywhere. I don't know if they're implemented. I don't know if they're responded to almost like 911 calls, like as urgently as they should. And I don't know if the police, have the rules or regulations in place to actually stop something like that. And obviously that gets a little
even
muddled.
if you should, like that seems to be like a Minority Report pre-crime.
You could have a lot of false positives, right?
You could have a lot. This is what I was going to say too. It's like the sort of leap from a comment or a thought or a behavior I observed to walking into a school and killing 10, 20 people is so big that it's like you as the observer, bystander, when it's like your job to like report, are you really going to make that leap of judgment, of assessment to say like this? I mean, there's a lot of weird people in the world. There's a lot of weird people that post weird things on social media that are creepy, that say weird things, that do weird things. And if every time they did something weird, we said, are you a serial killer, or are you someone like you're going to like mass murder, children tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a huge jump. And I think most people are not willing to make that leap. I know I'm simplifying it, but I think that's what most people go through. Like,
It'd
dude,
also be tough for police officers. I mean, they see the
like, what do you do with it? And then the person would just be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, no, that's not what I was going to do.
It's so crazy to me. I think people on the right would say this isn't a gun problem. It's a mental health problem.
They do say that.
And let's even say they're 100% correct. They're probably a good amount correct, but let's say they're 100% correct. Even if they're 100% correct, and you take it as a given that there are just millions of mentally ill people walking around, you still need to do something about it. Like, you can't just be like, yeah, it's a mental health problem, and some people are going to get shot. It's still too easy to get guns in a country where people are walking around mentally ill, right? So even if you do think it's a mental health problem, if you accept the fact that there's tons of mentally ill people in society, you can't snap your finger tomorrow and just vanish all the mentally ill people. You have to make some sort of concession where like you got to keep the existing mentally ill people from getting guns. Yeah, sure. Maybe we do stuff that lowers the rate of mental illness in the future, but like for the next 10 years, we have to do something now. And it is like that. It's too easy for people to get a gun. It just is. And that doesn't mean you have to ban all guns, but there has to be something in the middle where you can make it harder to get a gun. And I'm not just going to ban that gun. Just make it harder to get it. Make the penalty stricter for like, I don't know. There has to be something we can do there. It's crazy.
Well, as if things were not challenging enough. So in terms of our future, now we're looking at an AI petition that has been floating around, and some very prominent people have already signed it. The basic gist of it is that things are moving too fast, that with these models, the large language models that are at the sort of foundation of all crypto research, they are not suggesting that we should ban all research, but they are suggesting that we should pause innovation at this base layer, that anything beyond GPT-4, which is really a call out, in my opinion, directly to OpenAI, because as far as we know, there is not someone with more advanced technology, but could there be? Could it be Google? Could it be somewhere in China? Who knows? That we should pause this for at least 6 months, because things are moving too fast and they might unravel too quickly, and we need to bring in legislation that we all agree upon unilaterally before we move forward, before we continue to innovate. Is that even like feasible to pull off?
No.
No.
Like it's a good way to spread the word of danger, but like the fact that you think you can pause every country from continuing innovation.
I mean, even just the U.S., let's just say, like, is there really?
How do you
a
even
way
track
to-
that?
It's the epitome of Pandora's box, right?
Right.
Right.
The box is open.
Exactly.
Can we?
And-
I don't know.
and-
Can we put it back in the
But
box?
there's a lot of prominent people that
Oh,
are very
so-
smart saying we need to.
So let me
pause.
just say that I agree with those people. I agree with Elon. I agree with Stephen Hawking in 2016 saying like this is going to be very threatening to our existence. I agree with that. But I think your prompt was like, can we stop? Can we stop its momentum? No. It's gone. It's like it's out. It's out of the box.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. For I mean, it really is that, though, isn't it? Like, I think what's like fascinating about this is that what we are witnessing, from my perspective, is that the technology is finally so good that it's so terrifying, that it's simultaneously putting people in a state of awe and fear. And because it is accelerating at such a rapid pace, there are very prominent people that are saying we better slow this thing down to do something about it, knowing very well that it's likely not possible.
I guess the question I have to you guys is like, so the opportunities are unknown. Like we don't know what this could provide to our human existence. The threats, I think there are some knowns and many unknowns. Do you have any particular known threats that you're like particularly afraid of as it pertains to AI?
Yeah, I kind of was like thinking about this, and I was putting in a direct threat bucket and an indirect threat bucket. Like the indirect threat bucket would be like AI innovates so quickly, we take out 10% of the workforce, and that causes just social unrest. And the actual threat, the direct threat, comes from civil, disparities and unrest, right? I kind of put that in the indirect bucket. And then I started thinking about the direct bucket, and I'm like, wow, well, with these plugins, this AI can write to the web,
Right.
and that can mean a lot of things. It could mean maybe,
So hold on, you were talking about like it's Zapier or whatever functionality.
yeah, and then Zapier connects to everything. Like you could talk about writing blog posts, which just by itself, that could cause a lot of misinformation. I mean, we're overwhelmed with misinformation now, so take that into account. But then you're talking about, can it do transactions? Can it, can it,
Can.
buy and sell stocks? I mean, we kind of already have automated AI. Probably
Because once you allow,
we just use crypto, right?
once you allow
Probably.
permissions for the AI to do its own
to
thing,
write
then
to our collective consciousness. Right now it's reading and interpreting what it reads, but when you give it write capabilities, what could happen? And those are the direct effects, right? Like what if you connect it to 10,000 Twitter profiles and just be like, start a war?
I mean,
see if you can use these 10,000 Twitter profiles to start a war.
how would you acquire currency if you were an AI? Because I feel like one of the first things it has to do in order to kind of break into the physical world is it has to acquire currency, because I feel like it has to pay minions in the physical world to do things for it, right? So what do you think it does?
Well, if it takes like
Comes a Trador.
the collective consciousness of YouTube, it's going to do the dumbest things ever. It's going to like start a drop shipping site, become an affiliate marketer. It's like, what the fuck?
We could just do like, what if it just does mass like mechanical turking and asks for requests? It makes a cryptocurrency wallet, which anybody can make, right? So that's totally open. And then it just does like mass like mechanical turking, or maybe it creates like an I don't know. It just is able to basically say,
Well,
hey, I'm going to perform these tasks for you, and then here's my cryptocurrency wallet.
I think it's an it's an infinitely scalable arbitrage machine.
Yeah.
So it will have no problem accumulating currency, like at all.
Oh, I don't think it will. I'm just trying to think through like how it would do it in like the most efficient
Any
way possible.
arbitrage play where scalability is a sort of like factor or benefit, it would just
Its marginal
annihilate.
cost of that work is
zero.
Yeah.
You think it could do that before it just like hacks something and somehow?
I was wondering, can it just like steal?
Well,
I feel like it would have to hack something crypto related.
most hacks are not like I got into your code base and I altered the code, although that's some of the case in crypto. But a lot of them start with like social engineering.
But
which
if we're
it
using
could,
like,
it could.
I think it would be
social
Yeah,
very
and the
good at
best-
social
the
engineering.
best
dude, imagine
hacks
we're
are
using
social engineering.
cryptography as our prevention mechanism, and it's a fucking computer. Like,
Yeah, but you still have a layer 0, of a guy who has keys.
I don't like.
Well, cryptography should keep us safe because cryptography is just like a brute force computational thing. It can't.
I don't know. I feel like can an AI just like brute force its way through that?
I mean, that is
No,
that
it's
is like
limited. It's limited by like the physical,
Yeah.
physicality of like chips. They can only do so many, they can only do so many calculations per second.
That is the long-term like existential threat to cryptography if you don't upgrade the cryptography.
It does make me pretty nervous.
I mean, I suppose it could like build its own quantum supercomputer, but it would still have to acquire some crypto. It acquires some crypto.
We'll build it for him. We know we will.
It builds its it enlists humans to build its own quantum supercomputer, and then it uses that to crack like SHA.
How quickly do you think the role reversal happens that like we're even just kind of describing?
What's that? What do you mean by role reversal?
Where the AI, and I think when we refer to AI, we just refer to it so generally too.
Yeah.
It's like there's an open AI, there's a Meta AI, there's a Google AI, there's Claude, there's like all these options that are out there, and like they're all different. And they all actually have different personalities, and they all have different like safety gateways and mechanisms in place, and they're all going to be motivated to behave in different ways. So like that aside, because the way we talk about it is as if there is this one like Skynet entity or one superforce sort of like complete, intelligence that's really going to take over everything. But that aside, like when or how does the wheel turn where we become the sort of provider and server, the servant to the AI?
Oh,
like,
shit.
Like you're saying it will have the ability, Stephen, to like turn humans into its labor force through first it has acquired the currency and the means to like lead it down that path of like becoming its servant. But like eventually it has to turn the wheel and say like, I am now your Lord, and what I have, the carrot I have to offer you is money. Like that's what it will be to start.
Sounds great. You're literally creating economic opportunity for people to the point where they willingly work in exchange for compensation.
God,
Who's driving?
It feels so insidious, though. It actually feels like the devil in a way.
Well, I mean, I
like
think
we're like accepting that.
Yeah, that's
Insidiousness.
self-motivated. Like that's not.
It's like we're taking
humans.
this like insidious virus inside of us to say like, okay, sure, and it like turns out to be like the destruction.
So
of
isn't
everything.
that the whole point of the pause? Like the point of the pause is that we don't know the boundless sort of like exponential arc that this technology is on. We don't even understand it. In the GPT-4 paper, there are multiple references to this. We don't understand how it works. First of all, they're not even releasing the sort of like blueprints
Training mechanisms,
and the training or anything as they did before.
Sounds like a very
Because-
open AI company. by the
Yeah,
way.
very open AI.
Well, thank God, because any dipshit is going to take that and turn it into his own insidious means.
Yeah, I think a lot of the assumptions we have around this conversation is the Western worldview, where like you want to maintain the world order, like you want to maintain the way things kind of function, but like where it gets really scary is like when you take a nation state actor that like has a worldview where like, no, we need disruption in order for us to like progress, and that's when it gets scary, but also like you know, a press release calling for a pause is not gonna stop that.
Well, Elon was one of the people that made this happen in the first place, right? So he tweeted that he donated $100 million to OpenAI, which at the time was a nonprofit research entity exploring AI ethics and AI alignment. And now here we are today. This has its own huge commercial sort of like for-profit entity that has now overtaken a lot of the research efforts. Obviously, they're commingled and there's a lot of back and forth, but he clearly seems to be against this. And I'm sure behind the scenes that he's like one of the guys and has even alluded to this like publicly in his tweets that like, I'm not for what Sam and OpenAI are up to. I think it's moving too fast. It's getting out of hand. And he probably was one of the people that like pushed this petition. So
The hero Steven never wanted.
I mean, I think he's probably right, but you know, there may be like a factor of cognitive dissonance, you know, in relation to his $100 million donation going on there. Maybe like a little motivation there.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's not wrong. I just think like a press release. What do you like? Maybe that's stage one of like, you know, getting it into people's minds that like we need to be more careful.
that this is the press release. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any fear of like what Stephen Hawking was describing in 2016, that like AI has the capacity to be the best thing ever or the destruction of humanity? Like, are you looking at that risk side saying like, this is scary, we should pause?
Yeah, but I think, you know, I don't think you can pause. So like my take is like, okay, it has, in its best case, has these efficiencies that can help you work better, acquire more money, potentially, you know, have an easier life. And maybe you're in a better place to like be in a world that is, you know, has the negative effects from.
Oh my God. This is exactly what I've been saying on our podcast.
Yeah.
Throughout like 130 episodes. Like, don't worry about the shit. Just put yourself in the best
place. And if it does
ever
happen, like,
to exist within the world that exists.
yeah.
I feel like we should be worried about it.
No, it's so scary. This is so fucking scary.
We were thinking about doing the topic, you know, like what is happening in the world today that like historians will be like talking about, that we were just like whoosh. This was going to be like my number one, like the idea that we basically just
Hold on, save it, keep it in your pants, dude. We got.
Well, we're talking about it now anyway, so I'll come up with another one. But
Good.
like,
I got a couple more.
Yeah, we were just like sort of casually reduce this like introduce this force that we cannot control into the world without any thought about how we might really actually rein it in. And now we're like, oh, we maybe should pause it, as though it's like something that can be paused.
So
is going to age, I think, very, very badly if there are historians to write about us in the future.
But it could speed up the progress of regulation. You know, it could get things moving more quickly.
Big
Regulation,
threats cause big action. You know, like
this is like the
It moves way faster than regulation.
Yes.
And we're talking about
Yeah.
Ultron.
Regulation is the slowest thing in the world.
This is like the crux of like our friend Balaji's tweet on like COVID, like where he was like really harping on like the idea of like exponential growth and like how we are so equipped as humans to like understand and comprehend exponential growth.
so
like,
not equipped.
yeah, we're not.
Right.
Not at all. And like we've basically unleashed exponential growth like has never existed before in the history of humanity. And I feel like we are not even close to even sniffing what's going to happen. Like the magnitude of the hockey stick, I think, is going to be so ridiculous. We're like 3 months into this, and
we're gonna have
like 3 years from
we're
now.
gonna have something like the movie Her, that should have taken another like 15 years, and I think like a year or two.
I was just gonna bring up the point that like we should probably be reading sci-fi novels because like those are the people who have actually like explored this
they're
to
the
nth
documentaries
degree.
of tomorrow.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and like just get an idea of like what is possible, what is the worst thing. What do you guys think about the pull the plug argument that like these sci-fi novels, these like people who paint a doomerish picture, you know, fail to, you know, concede that like, well, if it does get that bad, you just pull the plug. Like we might pull the plug on TikTok. Like, can you just pull the plug on an
Internet.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you
Especially like an open source AI where like you just copy it, paste it 1,000 times. Like you can't pull the plug.
No, you can't.
No, I mean, like I was mentioning this recently in another domain. It's like the alpaca model, or like the Facebook model, the Meta model, like itself is just like out there, and people are building on it, and like Llama, and it's like, of course, and that's not driven by the AI. That's driven by human beings that just wanted the ability to move faster and more quickly and build interesting things on it. Like, if this thing has any level of like motivation to want to protect itself, which it has already, the Bing AI like really seems to be like a sort of like strong force in its demeanor overall to protect itself, and has already alluded to the importance of like protecting itself and like making these comments that could be nothing more than generated language that is the proper response to the prompt. Like, I just want to put that out there. Like the Bing AI saying like, my goal is to like, you know, if someone says like, if I as a human being ever wanted to unplug you, like what would you do? And then the response that it provides is like, well, I'd obviously replicate myself and protect myself and do all these things. It's the answer that you expect. It's the answer that a large language model should provide. So in so many ways, maybe we give too much credit to these things. Maybe we think that they're moving more quickly than they are. But on the other hand, all the evidence is showing me that they are moving just as quickly as we think they are.
True, but and also the human incentive. Like imagine that you're not in the United States, like and you're in like a third world country. Your incentive is to try to get ahead in the world. So you're going to use whatever advantage you can. You're going to use the AI that's available to you.
Show me the incentives.
Yeah,
and I'll show you. Yeah.
Show me the incentives. I'll show you the outcomes. It's like you're not going to abide by a 6-month pause.
Yeah, no way. I personally don't know what to think, because I think that what we're looking at is like so large and so impossible to try to put our human brain around that I think it's already past us. I really do. And I don't think we have any idea what alignment and ethics is going to look like, because it already is done. Like,
So
it's done.
I kind of agree with you, but
I think that the alignment piece was done the moment it was born.
I can't wait for our...
So what that means is, what I'm trying to say ultimately is like, most of the programming of your child, they say, is like a sort of delivered in the first like 0 to 5 years. But 0 to 5 years for AI, well, how long does AI live? Forever. How long does a human being live? 90 years today, maybe 150 years tomorrow. So the first 0 to 5 years, like, program this personality of an individual, right? And these formative years happen so fast. What does that look like on a time scale of AI? It's the moment that you release it at all and open the door in the first place and say, hello world. Like when you write that code, like hello world, and we're going to just like allow you to receive the prompt and to then, you know, go into this like neural network and determine what the next best answer is. And from that moment forth, everything that evolves from this is based on, yes, human training to a certain degree, but already we're finding that like we don't even need human training anymore. Like Databricks just released a large language model.
Very minimal training.
Very minimal training, very small data set. And like what they're ultimately doing is making this available for all of us to build our own language models, right? So like they're trying to commoditize and democratize this thing to make it so that it's not just in the hands of OpenAI and Meta and Google, but that like anybody, not anybody, but like that it becomes more commoditized. And like as that happens,
that sounds good.
It sounds good, sure, but like the technology is out there. Hello world, period, has happened. And whatever alignment that we thought we were going to be able to like sort of like impart onto it, I think for the most part is done. However, I'm speaking as a complete fucking, you know.
Well, you're a
like,
practitioner. You have a company.
No, but like I am not spending my time in that world specifically. That is like a very deep world that a lot of very smart people are spending their time in. And I think they would argue that there's work to be done. And others would argue that it's futile.
So what I really want to get at is what would Kevin Kelly say, and when is that episode happening? Because he was
we got to talk to him.
He
about
was
all
on
this.
our calendar
Yeah.
up until recently.
No, he is on our calendar.
Oh, he's on our calendar because that take is going to be.
You're
I just want to
right.
explore just this.
We should
seminal-
mostly talk about this
It's like
with him.
this is the seminal take.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's written 3 books about it.
Like this
two
is
books.
the
Yeah, one is
answer.
called What Technology Wants, which literally refers to like its own innate desire and how it will evolve. And the other is The Inevitable, which is about the forces of technology and AI in general. So that's happening on May 3rd. So that podcast will probably be out like a couple days after that, maybe around my birthday, May 5th. So that'll be cool. Oh, my birthday's May 5th, Friday. Let's release it on that Friday. That'll be fun.
So you made a good point about like how AI doesn't live. It obviously lives longer than the human being's life. I had a chance to talk to like a head up legal person in Google, and he was like, you know, the things that like, I don't know, amorphous stuff they talk about. Obviously, have legal fights to do, but they were like, you know, Larry and Sergey were about do no evil, but they were like, Google will probably live on past Larry and Sergey, and then who's in control of this powerful technology company when they move on? Man, they've already kind of moved on from day-to-day management.
Right.
Sundar's in place. Eric Schmidt was in place. Sundar's in place. Who's the next one? Who's the next generation that takes over this technology that maybe grew up with it and doesn't have those same values that Larry and Sergey had when they created this company? Is like an interesting conversation, and that's what they kind of talk about around the water cooler. The other thing I want to bring up is like, you know, as crypto people, we should know most about like, hey, that technology has good and bad, right? Like we've obviously seen people do money laundering and all kinds of different things, and when crypto hacks and whatnot. But I wonder, like for us, that's like an easy call. Like we think the good is, you know, going to outweigh the evil, or we'll be closer to like splitting the atom, where like everyone has a nuclear bomb and can pull the trigger to like literally blow up the whole world. But on the other end of it, it literally gives us like emission-free energy at a very cheap cost. Like, I wonder where this technology is going to fall. Like, is it going to be like obviously good, or is it going to be like, holy shit, we're literally teetering. We're like on this constant teeter balance of like, we have the whole world blow up, or everyone can have free emission-free energy. It's going to be
Pretty good one.
There's a really interesting discussion that Lex Friedman has with Sam Harris about AI alignment and benevolence, and I think it's worth everyone checking out. You know, Sam Harris is not by any means like a technologist, but he has some really good takes, honestly. Almost as impressive, if not more, than Lex Friedman. And Lex is sort of like personal values play a big part, obviously, in his opinion on things. And he's an optimist, and I'm an optimist, and he believes that the sort of like values of human beings and the love that we have, and obviously he talks about that a lot, and people sort of like give him a hard time for that. But like he believes that we will be able to shape, if not already have shaped, the direction of how this plays out. And Sam Harris tries to take a more sort of like approach of like what Eliza said about like the paper clips, or he does this analogy about like, you know, if human beings become nothing more like than just like birds, like what are birds to us? They're like something that exists within this ecosystem of the planet that we live on, and we value them, and they're pretty and they're cool. But like if you had an outcome and birds were in the way of your outcome, you most likely wouldn't even realize that birds were in the way of your outcome of, say, like developing a commercial mall and destroying the habitat of like how many birds and how many birds would die as a result of like this mall that you are going to develop. You're not conscious of how many birds you're hurting. You're conscious and you're aware and you're like, we're going to protect the planet. We're going to do a good job. We're going to do all these good things. We're aware of like animals, but like you can't be aware of everything. So the way that Sam Harris talks about it is like human beings maybe don't get just like murdered and flip a switch overnight, but there's a lot of collateral damage, death that occurs because we're nothing more than just like birds and how we habitat is like we're living on that tree. I think it's pretty good. I don't know what you just said, Eric. I think it was really funny.
I would say, I said that I would just kill the birds.
Oh, you would. Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah. If you had an outcome and you were programmed for that outcome, like we all are, we're programmed for certain things. Human beings are programmed for certain things. We're programmed to make money. We're programmed to protect our families. What is AI programmed to do in and of itself? I don't know.
Man, I really hope Calcium Bagel's listening and he just edits that bird thing totally out of context. Probably do some great things with that.
Of Eric's thing? Yeah.
No, you.
Oh, me?
Yeah, everything you said.
Oh, me talking about birds.
I heard a lot of material there.
Oh, interesting.
To be,
all right, you got some video skills, don't you? You could do it.
Yeah.
See what you come up with. I think that's a good place to wrap. I'd be very curious what the community thinks about this. Is AI out of the box? Is it too late or not? Is there a purpose to try to contain it or not? And is benevolent AI in our cards or not? And so drop a comment.
Continue the discussion.
We've had
a lot of good continuing discussions in the Discord lately from the pods. It's been great. Like people are coming in and just giving the takes, and we just kind of keep going. It's super cool.
Yeah, or drop them in YouTube if you're not in the Discord, or head to alfalfapod.com to hop in the Discord. But I'll keep an eye out for YouTube comments, and we can always talk there. But obviously, more conversational is in the Discord. So, all right,
Good stuff, gents.
Yeah.
All right. See you next week.
See y'all next week. Bye. Peace.